we ready?
Turn that shit up. You have now entered Staying on Point, powered by Digital Sucker Punch. Discussing all things business, fitness, and marketing. You're about to go on a deep dive interviewing some of the best in the business when it comes to thought leaders, entrepreneurship, and business. Buckle up, put your seatbelts on, you're in for a ride. All right, welcome along to our very first episode of Staying on Point. I've got a very special guest with us for today, a long-term friend of mine, someone that I completely admire, someone that I look up to in the world of business, and we have an opportunity to pick his brain, see how he's got where he's gotten, and everything that his journey along the way. This guy is someone that if anyone's going to write a book in this world or in my circle of friends, it's going to be this guy. He has a story to tell. He has trials and tribulations, has experienced it all from the highs and lows, and now runs a very, very successful supplements business, primarily through e-commerce, but obviously looking at other channels as well. But we're going to dive into all of this right now and welcome our guest, Jordan Farris from Alpha Lion. I'm just going to patch you in right now, my man. Jordan, how are you, buddy?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me on the show. I feel privileged being the first one. I don't know what I've done to achieve that, to get that privilege.
Well, you know, we've got to cut our teeth on something, and what better person to chat to than yourself? So, man, listen, we're going to kick it off with the obligatory who, what, why, when questions, all the W's. You know, who are you? Where are you? What are you doing over there? You know, give us a bit of insight into all things Jordan Farris.
Yeah, for sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm co-founder of Alpha Lion, sports nutrition brand, based out of America. I'm actually living here in Medellin, Colombia. So I've been here for about 3 years, business partner based out of LA. So, we've built the business, as a remote outfit, which has come with its challenges, but I think it has benefits as well. So, originally from Australia, Dave, as you know, we've gone way back to the days of, the party days back in Australia. So, yeah, I guess from, we've had Alpha Lion now about 3 years, and this is probably the first business where I've actually, I guess, had the passion and stuck to it, and, we're seeing success from it. So, I guess in terms of, how the business got started, Dave, as you know, I was sort of jumping into e-commerce, different fad businesses, never really had anything that I wanted to do. It was always just finding the next big fad that was coming and jumping on it. There's no passion behind it. My business partner, Troy, comes from the direct response background, and we sort of met on a project. He was doing some copy, and the idea came about, we wanted to do our own project. I've always been, passionate about fitness since, the early days, 12 years old, training, getting into it. And that all came from, I guess, being that skinny little runt in school, wanted to put on a bit of front, look good for females. That was the whole gym culture back in the day in Australia. So
yes, it was.
Yeah, as you know, so we started Alpha Lion literally off a phone call, Skype chat, just like we are now. We were up and running for about 18 months before we even met. First time we met was in Colombia. And I've only met Troy now 3 times, and like I mentioned earlier, that's got its benefits and its, its cons as well. So, yeah, let me know what else you want to hear about the story of Alpha Lion.
Oh man, well, there's so much to dive into, and I'm gonna hit on all those points. But let me kick it off with from the very beginning. So I know years and years ago you mentioned to me that you were going to start a supplements business, and at that time I was in the back of my mind. I was doubtful. I was like, it's a saturated market. Everyone seems to be doing supplements, or there's a lot of brands out there. We were taking supplements at that time, obviously, and I just saw, maybe I just couldn't see the trees amongst the forest, but I just saw it as such a saturated market, and I was like, all right, how is he going to tackle this? I'm curious to see what's going to come of this. Plus, I knew your history from your other business ventures that you partook in, so I was just like, all right, let's see what happens here. And, wind the clock forward, you've got a massively successful business. So what was the driving motivation to even go down the path of supplements, knowing that it's such a busy marketplace?
To be honest, I don't think we even looked at that aspect of it being saturated. I think, there's that argument that every industry is saturated, and I think in a way that's sort of more of a mindset of people. For us, we're passionate about it and just went in all in, and it sort of came out. I guess when you have that passion and that drive, and you're going to come out on the other end. So for us, it worked out that way. Troy, my business partner, is a YouTuber. So he had a small audience when we started, which allowed us to do a bit of testing with products in initial phases. When I say an audience, maybe 20,000 people on YouTube. So, these aren't people that are bought; they're just people that are following him, as you know. So, yeah, I guess for us, we never did that sort of research where, this market's saturated. It was more that we want to do this, let's go all in, and we did.
Okay, fantastic. So let me drill down into that even further. Now, like Alpha Lion has such a unique voice, it's such a unique branding, such a segment of the marketplace. What made you guys go down that path and identify that audience that you wanted to market to, essentially, and create products that would resonate with that type of audience? It's such a unique product, and I think that is a credit to your success and why Alpha Lion is so successful, because you've picked it, you've found the audience, you've created a product that speaks directly to them.
No, 100%. I guess we created products that we would take, that we wanted to take, and that's how it all started. We were marketing to ourselves, which, as you know, understanding that avatar makes life a lot easier, as it is us. Our brand has got a lot of personality, and I just think that came from, by that point, we'd had so many different businesses that it got really tiring to start a business, and we wanted to do something that was fun, and I think it goes back to the whole, I don't know how cliche this kind of stuff sounds. It's like passion is everything. And you hear it on every interview, and there's a reason you hear it, because it's the recipe. It's true, It's like, if you don't have that passion, it's not going to work. And for us, we wanted to do something that was everyday fun. Right now we're 3 years in. I'm working more than ever. That's because we're growing at a fast pace.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love it. For me at the moment, I prefer to work than not work. I just can't not work, and I think that comes down to making it fun and enjoyable. Whereas past businesses I've had have all just been like, chasing the dollars, where this has been a complete mindset shift. I'm not interested in, obviously money's a byproduct, but right now it's the least of my focus, and we've sort of moved our attention from trying to make a quick dollar to, serving people, and it's been fun in the process, so I could do it every day.
I couldn't agree with you more there. Like, as soon as money becomes the sole focus, when you hit those hard times, it's not going to get you through. The passion's what's going to get you through. The passion's what's going to keep you up, to all hours of the morning, working, getting that, hitting that deadline, producing that new product, and then fending off all the bullshit that comes along with once you grow, once you get to a certain level, which I do want to dive into, because I know you guys are getting hit from angles, and I think that all comes with growth, and people are definitely interested in that. So let me ask you, with Alpha Lion, what was the defining moment when you realized, hang on, we've got a successful business here, we've got something that is going to be scalable, potentially saleable, but for now, this is something that we can really dig our heels into and grow.
Yep.
Is there a defining moment? Was there something that made you realize, hey, listen, we hit certain revenue figures, we sold certain volume of products, we got some sort of recognition, some PR? Was there something that really ticked that box to make you guys go, yeah, we're on the path?
Yeah, definitely. I think year one for us was super slow. I remember the days where it was like, yes, we had $100 day. That was exciting. And that was very much so the whole of year one. So as you can see, it's like, it was tough that first 12 months. But when we started seeing people, started to talk about the brand, customers buying, I guess our retention rate as a brand is super high, and that tells us a lot about the brand in a whole. So I guess, moving into year two, we started seeing a lot of PR, people talking about the brand. And by then we sort of knew that, okay, there's interest. People are liking this. We built a private Facebook group. There was a lot of discussion inside of that, which, by the way, is probably our biggest asset, I would say, as a brand. It's allowed us to primary research. It's allowed us to, engage with it's our family now. We're on a family basis, a close friend basis with a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys inside of our group I speak to more than, Dave, like yourself. Like, we're close, but it's like on a day-to-day basis I speak to these guys. So, yeah, I guess seeing that kind of interaction has allowed us to see that, okay, we're building something here more than a product that people just want to take, go to the gym with. There's a lot more to it. So, yeah, I'd definitely say after year one, we started seeing some good success. And then year two, we had some good growth. But year three, we've seen some pretty significant growth.
Fantastic. Now, I remember years ago, you actually, we were talking, you told me about building a tribe, and that you'd rather have 1,000 people that would purchase off you and that were, brand advocates, opposed to 100,000 people that would just, sort of engage with your brand, but not really purchase or not really be your primary focus or audience. And you guys have really made a conscientious effort to build that tribe. And if I remember correctly, your Facebook groups is the Superhuman You group. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so even before you started launching products, had you started that group and started engaging with people and started communicating with them and understanding who your target market is, and then started introducing products, how did that process sort of came about, and how beneficial was that to really getting that traction once it started happening, to have that tribe there under your belt?
Yeah, that like I said, that's probably our biggest asset. I think too many people in this world right now focus too much on acquisition and sort of forget about that customer once they've come through. It's much cheaper to keep that customer happy than trying to acquire a new customer. Especially these days with rising, media costs, it's not what it used to be. So I don't get that part, and I think as a business owner, when you're first starting out, a lot of people just they're just spending so much time in the business, they don't look at the business from the outside and realize, hey, listen, I've got these 1,000 customers that already bought. Why aren't I giving them the attention? And for us, since day one, it's always been about that. Yes, we've grown quickly, but at the same time, it's been very strategic in regards to we always service those existing customers, and that's where the private group comes in. We have a content hub that is separate to Alphaline called Superhuman You, which is a full content website with there's paid programs, but there's enough information there that a person can achieve their goals in terms of with fat loss, weight gain, whatever it is, without those programs. And that's a free library that takes us a lot of time. Troy has his YouTube, so we're still giving a lot of that value. But in terms of the group, that was launched pretty much as we launched the brand, so it wasn't before.
Okay.
But it allowed us to, launch a product, get some insights before we even made any iterations to that product or launched a new product, So we launched with 2 products out of the gate and then brought in a third one, which is now a hero SKU, probably about 4 months after the first 2, and it's sort of, snowballed from there, started taking off from there, yeah.
And how much do you engage with your audience in terms of potential new product releases, potential new formulas or formulations? Do you sort of communicate with them on that level to dictate the direction of the company and to dictate the direction of the products being released? Can you fill us in a little bit more on that?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we do 100%. They're very involved. In terms of formulations, not so much. But in terms of a high level, okay, we want to bring in a pre-workout or a new flavor of a protein. They're very much so involved in terms of picking a flavor, getting involved in actually sampling the product before we actually sign off on it. So yeah, they're very heavily involved. But from the top, we do our market research in terms of trends that's happening in the industry. And we've got a lot of data now, 3 years into business, of what SKUs that do move. And as a brand, it's hard to have that. You don't want to have that catalog of just 100 SKUs just because it looks good. It's the 80-20 rule on our end. The pre-workout category and probably in the protein category, the 2 highest moving sports nutrition, SKUs. So for us, it just makes sense being the best in those. And that's where we do a lot of market research in terms of the pre-workouts, new flavors, that kind of thing. So they're very heavily involved, but not from the top up in terms of formulation and then down. It's sort of They come in after we have a formula, but they'll be involved in iterations of that formula. We might send out 3 versions, and these guys will sort of, taste test and effect test and give us feedback, and from there we sort of finalize everything.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which I'll just jump onto that. It gives the customer a bit of ownership to the product.
Of course.
So when you release it, they feel like they've been a part of it. So I think that's super important, and I don't think enough brands do it. And it's why? Because it's time consuming. You've got 2 types of brands. You've got the ones that have a face behind them and the ones that don't. The ones that have a face can do these kind of things, and both have their pros and cons. I look at a brand that has a face behind as a harder exit. If you want to sell, you've got that person attached to it, but they're not going to be part of it. Maybe the sell's going to be harder, whereas a brand that's faceless doesn't have this kind of interaction where people know the owners, but at the same time, there's no barrier if they do want to sell, I guess. Like everything, there's pros and cons.
Of course. Now, you mentioned before your hero product. So you've got a hero product out of the gate, which is your superhuman. Is that, sorry, is it superhuman? Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong there. What's your hero product?
Superhuman pre-workout.
Yeah, fantastic. And I how long have I known you for? And I've actually never had it myself. So one day we'll get it sent down over to Australia.
I don't know if you'll be able to handle it, Dave. We'll have to see. No, I'll get some out to you this week.
Yeah, fantastic. But in terms of products, I know you guys are doing a lot of releases at the moment. Do you want to fill us in on what you've got current, what's in the pipelines? I know you obviously for the times you've moved some product releases back, or forward, I should say, so that it's relative to what people want at this point in time. So we've got a new immunity product. Fill us in. What was the motivation behind that? What's so special about that? And what's on the cards for it?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, at the time of this interview, we're going through a very unprecedented time with coronavirus. So it has had to change the way we think. I guess on a silver lining, the health industry is probably the one that's benefiting out of this. But in saying that, being a sports nutrition brand and gyms in lockdown, things like pre-workout, with our existing messaging just weren't selling. So, we had to pivot. We bundled in sort of our digital program at home workouts with the pre-workout. So it still gave them a reason to buy these SKUs. But on top of that, as a brand, we're focusing on the offline strategy quite a bit. Our independence, we just launched on bodybuilding.com towards the end of last year. GNC is another big one, but at the time of this interview, I think they'll end up going bankrupt because of coronavirus. So we'll probably move away from that as a strategy, as an offline channel, and probably focus our attention on Vitamin Shop. Much smaller, but in terms of their position as a business, much safer. So looking at these kind of strategies, we're focusing on SKUs that we have wanted to do for quite some time, which are more in the health space. We've just brought together Superhuman Armor, which is an immunity product. I'm not going to announce the release date because we haven't announced it. In the coming weeks, we have Superhuman Gut, and we're bringing to market, first brand in the sports nutrition industry to bring a very exciting new ingredient to market. So for us, innovation is going to be a big part of Alpha Line moving forward. We're working with basically, ingredient suppliers to create new ingredients that we will bring to market. And that's something as a brand, we don't want to be a Me Too brand that just brings forward products. We want to be the innovators, and that's something we've always wanted. And I think in the sports nutrition brand, there's not enough innovation, and that's something we're looking at. And obviously that there's a lot of R&D costs, but as a brand, as a person trying myself, that's something we've wanted to do. So moving forward, you're going to see a lot more health-based SKUs, and you're going to see new ingredients that other brands aren't using. So that's definitely something we're pretty excited about. But in terms of the next couple of weeks, we've got so this Friday, so tomorrow, May 8th, we're launching a limited edition of our hero SKU Superhuman. That's Liberty Juice. So now all around the freedom of getting our workouts back. So again, it just sits in with personality, and a part of the brand, we're donating $10,000 to we partnered with Vitamin Angels earlier last year, and that's something that is really a big part of our brand. And I think what drives us on a day-to-day basis is that we have our own foundation here in Medellin, Colombia, called Karma Foundation. So we're donating $10,000 of sales to that foundation, as well as $10,000 to Vitamin Angels. And Vitamin Angels basically provides life-saving vitamin A to children, malnourished children. That's the biggest cause of death in the world for children. So that's again, that sort of drives a lot of what we do as well.
Phenomenal. Just the sheer amount of, I wouldn't say volume, but what you've succeeded in a short period of time. I particularly think with e-commerce, people either have that dropship mentality where it's just instantaneous, but it's not. There's no stability behind it, and what goes up, what comes down. But for what you guys have achieved in such a short period of time, only being 3 years in business, and you've got past that terms of statistically saying that within the first 2 years 80% of small businesses will fail, and then within the next 2 years after that an X amount of percentages will fail there. And the fact that you guys have been able to grow to where you are in that 3-year period, and also have your, I suppose, philanthropical, if that's the word, philanthropical adventures along the side and donating to Vitamin Angels, is phenomenal, because then it becomes obviously not only about business, but it becomes about the purpose and what more that you can get and give out of your business. So, it just makes me excited hearing about what you guys are doing. And what I'd like to know is where you want to go. Where's next for Alpha Lion? Like right now you're an e-commerce brand. Are you looking at being more of a what's the acronym for a DNVB, digital native vertical brand? Is there opportunity for that?
Yeah, 100%. I think for us moving forward, online's my background. I love paid media. I just think, again, we're experiencing it right now with coronavirus. I think there's going to be a big shift. Offline is going to be there, but I think you're seeing right now that a lot of these brands that are probably going to go bust is because they didn't have an online strategy. So for us, online is always going to be number one. But from an offline strategy, we can't ignore, your big box retailers like your Walmarts, your Krogers, these kind of guys that can just buy in volume. For us as a brand, the bigger we get, the more people we help. So that's, end of the day, that's the mission. So I'm not interested in being a $5 million brand, a $10 million brand. We want that $100 million revenue, in the next sort of 3 to 5 years is what our goal is, what we're striving towards. And like I said, it sort of turns around and comes back to, with that, the more people we can help. So right now, the focus this year is, I guess, the coronavirus is still around. Again, at the time of this, whenever this airs, Dave, I think we're still in a very uncertain time. And I like to think that I'm very, you've known me for a long time. I take a lot of risks, but this is one time in my life where I'm sort of, I'm being a bit more of a smarter thinker. I just think we need to. I don't think we've seen the economic impact that's going to come through all this. And again, I don't want to get into that kind of side of things with this conversation, but I think as a business owner,
but yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah, well, we have operational costs. It's a little bit different. The last thing I want to do is lay off people. So we need to be smart about what we're doing right now. So we're moving along and being very strategic in what we do. If anyone that's followed us the last 6 weeks, we've had more product launches in our company history than ever, and that sort of drove our incremental revenue the last 6 weeks. But that's not feasible. We can't be doing a product launch. We've almost had a product launch every 10 days. It's not feasible, So from a business, we want to sort of actually take a step back and say, hey, listen, let's execute things a little bit slower and get them more out of these. But from that, focusing a lot more on our offline strategy, where we're focusing our growth bodybuilding.com. And like I mentioned with your vitamin shops, and then, international sort of growth as well has been, we've got a lot of people asking, but we've just said no at the moment. So been very strategic, and I think it will continue being that way. But on my end, I've always been the kind of person who's like instant gratification, let's do this shit right now. Yeah. You look at pre-workouts. Why do you think it's the number one selling category in sports nutrition? It's, instant gratification. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs need to learn to not go after that instant gratification. I think as a business owner, having a lot of failures, we've learned that, So
there's an analogy in there. If we can sort of wrangle that in with entrepreneurship and your pre-workout, it sort of seems like it almost has some sort
100%.
of metaphorical meaning there. Now, you talked about the growth that you've achieved in over the 3-year period, and obviously that hasn't come without its trials and tribulations. Now, from my talkings with you and understanding a little bit, a smidgen about the supplements industry, it seems like it's a cutthroat industry, to say the least. Particularly when you start to get traction and eyeballs on your brand and what you guys are doing. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you guys have been experiencing in terms of legalities and things like that? I know you've mentioned stuff before, if you're willing to talk about that and how that came about, why that comes about, and how can you combat that?
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime you start, if it comes from paid media, we're everywhere. Everyone I speak to is like, we see you guys everywhere, and that straight away puts a stigma in people's, minds that these guys must be killing it. You know what I mean? That's just straight away the first thing people see because they see you everywhere. It's no different to these marketers that post their shots on Facebook. I did $1 million revenue this week, but where's your net profit? Tell me that stuff. So I think we've now attracted that kind of, we're in that not so much now a small brand. We're starting to, in our industry, again, even though it's a big industry, it's still small in regards to everyone knows who each other are. So we're starting to attract, unfortunately, some legal issues, and that's going to always happen. I imagine any business that starts hitting certain revenue markers or certain growth, a certain size, will attract these. So what that's now, and taught me, is that we need to, make sure that we're covered in all aspects. We're looking at bringing on a compliance officer, in-house counsel, and these are the kind of things before you grow too fast. I think a business really needs to square off. Otherwise, you could be doing $100 million and get hit with this. And unfortunately, we live in a world where you can be right, but unless you fight that stuff, you're wrong. So it's like, it's true, as you know, but that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
So on our end, we've been hit left, right, and centre in this year. We're fighting a couple of things right now. And we'll come out on top. I know we're right with it. I just got to be careful with my stubbornness. I always like to, I want to fight it, but what's the time and effort that will, you know what I'm like. What's the time and effort that's going to go into that when I can focus on other things? So, yeah, I guess any brand that's going to, hit certain growth will experience that. On our end, we're doing that right now, and it's just going to continue. But we're just putting things in place to make sure that the next time that happens, it's not when we're at 10 times the revenue, and if it ever does go to some kind of settlement, you're paying big dollars. So, yeah, I guess my sort of word of advice for any brand that's sort of starting out, get your IP sorted, get your trademarks sorted. These things you don't think about day one. And they are the things you should think about. If you don't have the money to register your IP, don't get into business. That's the way I sort of look at it these days. And, I say that now, but when I started, I didn't do that. So, it's very hypocritical, but word of advice is just, you can build this brand and you don't have your IP protected, you're going to get someone to come around and, take that from you.
Sounds like you're trying to discourage any fledgling supplements company coming up from underneath you. Snapping at the heels there, Jordan.
No, I'm all for it. I'm happy to help any supplement company, succeed. I want to see them succeed, and I think it's just important as a business owner. People don't take shortcuts, and unfortunately we do, and it all comes down to cash. You take those shortcuts because of that. I've done it, you've done it, everyone's done it, and we continue doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, I like to think we've matured a little bit over the years and start to make a little bit more rational, sensible decisions when it comes to business and life. Hey, let me switch it up a little bit now, and you're in Medellin, Colombia. What brought you there? Like my own ignorance and arrogance, only saw Medellin, Colombia as what I've seen in the movies. Cocaine, what's his name, Escobar, all that sort of stuff. So now I understand that it's a entrepreneurial hub for e-commerce, for digital nomads, if you will. I understand that it's a beautiful city, it's a beautiful place, but what brought you there? What attracted you to leave from Australia, go to the other side of the world by yourself, and post up in a completely foreign country? And not only go there, but how long have you been there for now? Nearly 2 years now, is it?
This will be 3 years. May 2017 was my first time here, so we're coming on to, geez, May 8th, so about to hit 3 years, yeah. Yeah, so, let me first touch, I think this has been a massive contributor to the success of Alpha Line. And the reason I say that is when I was in Australia, I had an advertising agency, we launched Alpha Line at the same time I was working for other people, and I guess, I was in just that rut, the day-to-day sort of thing, and I wasn't motivated. And that was the biggest trigger of me wanting to leave. I just wanted to get away from Australia. I didn't care where, and just change that environment. And I think, I don't know if you're like this, but anytime I change environment, I feel it's meditation for me.
Of course.
As soon as I get on a plane, it's like meditating. So yeah, I think Terry, Dave, one of our good mates, actually mentioned he travelled through South America. Medellin, mentioned a big place, and good old Facebook was listening to our conversation, got retargeted with an ad, cheap flights, booked it on the spot, and 3 months later, I just took off by myself to Medellin and never looked back. And a big difference here between Australian culture here, it's not about money. People that live for family, they live just to have a good time. Whereas places like Australia, everyone's in a hustle to make dollars, and they forget about family. That's been a big life change, like a mindset shift for me. And I think that's, when we started really accelerating was that, hey, like these guys are happy, they have no money. And for us on our end, it's been the same. Again, like we are heavily involved in charity work here. And for me to go out and we work with an orphanage house of a group of 40 girls, and when I go out there, it's like nothing else matters. I complain about my Wi-Fi that doesn't work today, and you go out there, these guys don't have Wi-Fi, they're not complaining. So I think, yeah, that cultural change has definitely been a big contributor to, our success, or my success with our brand. And I think for anyone that's sort of stuck in a rut, they just should pack up and go somewhere. I think it's... if you're not tied down with kids or a wife, whatever it is, just get up and go. And I think anyone that's done it will attest to that 100%. And that's why I like to travel every year. I'll take off 2 to 3 times a year because for me it's meditation. So yeah, I think Colombia, for anyone that sort of thinks narcos, don't think narcos, I feel safer in Colombia where I am than I do in Australia. Obviously you got parts of Colombia that are dangerous, but I'm not in those parts. I don't need to go to those parts. But other than that, you'll definitely learn a thing or two by coming and living here in Colombia. On a daily basis, the challenge of not speaking the language just grows you as a person. Yeah, so for me, it's been a massive thing. I think I'll never look back. And this is home now. I've got 2 dogs here. A charity here. So, I've got visa issues with America, so that's been one of our barriers as well. That with Troy and I, that I can't actually go to America, and time zones in Australia, as you know, are a nightmare. So, this was another reason that I set up base here. We have our 5 staff here. We manufacture our clothing here. So I don't see this ever changing until I can get a visa for America. Yeah, so this is home.
And so you don't plan on coming back to Australia anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, no.
And so I know I've spoken to you about this personally, but with the whole coronavirus thing coming in play, I know at one stage, the Australian government was like trying to get everyone back into country. Did that ever cross your mind? Did you ever think, all right, shit, I better get back to Australia? Shit's getting wild. I better get back, be around my familiar surroundings, or somewhat familiar surroundings, at least your family home, and escape all the madness that was going to erupt. You seem like you've just buckled down the hatches and stayed there. What made you do that? What made you stay in Colombia and not sort of head back home?
Yeah, well, I knew going back home was going to be a massive distraction, number one. Right now for us, we're busier than ever. So I wanted to, I didn't want to break my sort of routine at all. And number two, Australians were still, surfing. They were still in herds, walking, on the beach.
Still are, mate. Still are.
Exactly, and it felt on Colombians, and we shut down quite early here, which is a surprise because I always joke that Colombians we call them tortugas, which is like turtles. There's no rush to do anything here. And again, that comes from not being in a rush to make money or do anything like that. In Australia, you can pay someone $100 to do something 10 minutes quicker, an hour quicker. Colombia, it's like, I don't want your money. I'm going to chill with my family, So they closed down quickly here, and I felt safer at the time. And to be honest, I didn't really think about it. I was just so busy. It was like, and probably at the same time, I was a bit naive to where this would end up. I never thought we'd be 6 weeks in lockdown. I have not left I live in a big compound. So I actually live in a Narcos compound, you can call it. So I don't know, for the people who watch Narcos, the two guys that Pablo killed in jail, they actually built this building.
What?
So we have two peacocks that live in our compound. It's a weird, very safe. You've got security here 24/7, but I haven't left this compound in 6 weeks. So we've been in pretty solid lockdowns since then. And then now I'd love to go back to Australia, but at the same time, I wouldn't get back in here for quite some time. So I think I'll be here for a while.
And so do you have all the, the creature comforts of being at home? I mean, what do you do for food? Have you got Uber Eats? If you're not leaving, what's your setup there for anyone that's never been to Colombia,
Yeah. So, pre-coronavirus, Colombia is a very cheap country to live. I've got a maid. I had a cook. These kind of things that, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to clean, you don't want to cook, you just want to use that time to work. In Australia, you can't do those kind of things. Here in Colombia, you can do these things. It makes more sense to employ those people. So again, I go back to Medellin. As a startup business, you are strapped for cash. Well, most are. If you're not, then you're one of the lucky ones. You're strapped for cash, and I think living in Australia is probably the last place if you're strapped for cash to do a startup. Somewhere like this, I can live for a sixth of the price of Australia. My place in Australia, Dave, you would know, would be a $10,000 to $15,000 a month place. I'm at probably 15% of that. So you do have the luxuries here for very cheap. So it's definitely something I recommend for someone that's, willing to get out of their comfort zone and come here. Internet, you've got cafes. They've all been built for the digital nomad. We've got some really good people here. My group is a circle of friends here, all have very successful businesses. You've got some really good minds here. I wouldn't say it's equivalent to your centers in America that sort of breed entrepreneurs, but it's very up there. But then you get the mix of, the relaxed life and the Colombian culture, which sort of gives you a chance to step aside from your business and relax and, know there's other things outside of business, which I think is important.
On that note, outside of business, what, put business aside, because I know you're a workaholic. I know you always have been. Whatever you dedicate yourself to, you're head down, bum up, religiously. But, what outside of business excites you at the moment? What sort of lets you switch off, get out, refresh, rejuvenate, and, get your head out of the laptop?
Yeah, so I guess earlier last year we got an opportunity to go out and visit a foundation here, and we were sort of hooked. We got to spend some time with some kids, and we started going on a weekly basis. We were providing, and this is what really blows me away. I think there was about 60 kids, and between myself and my friend, I think it was about $100 US a week, and we were able to provide them a full lunch banquet every Sunday. So it blew me away. 60 kids. $50 between myself and my friend each. So we started doing that on a regular basis to switch off. And we ended up setting up a foundation here. And we're starting to get more active in that. Like I mentioned earlier, we have one group of orphanage, a group of 40 girls that we work with, and we go spend time with them. That's been a really big way to switch off and just sort of realize that, hey, the problems that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis are they're insignificant. They really are. Unfortunately, I get caught in the rut, complain about Wi-Fi, these stupid things, and these are sort of a way to separate yourself from that. Outside of that, the gym's really my only other haven, and that's something I've been passionate about. I can't go a day without it, but obviously now with coronavirus, it's been a real big shift, to be able to go from going to gym every day now to, training at home. So outside of that, to be honest, it's just work. And I still look at work for me. Weekends for me, I love working because, the teams offline. I really get to work on some of my really high level stuff, and I enjoy that in a way. Like I said, it's sort of meditation for me. But it's not sustainable long term as a business owner. I think people need to switch off. So as you know, hey, I'll go back to your step. I've always been head down, bum up. I'll definitely say that, 18 to 22 definitely was it. In our heydays, our party days, we were definitely not business, so it was sort of from 21, 22 onwards that it's been like that. But in the early days, it was a bit of fun for sure.
Mate, on that note, that's a perfect little segue. Everything we've talked about so far has been current, what's happening in the world of business in the last 2 to 3 years. Man, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure the listeners would love to hear about your previous business ventures, the previous journeys. Like I know Death Suite, how much time, sweat, effort you put into that, how much money, some of the things that you guys did with that brand, you and I think it was Joe at the time, was mind-boggling to me. Like I couldn't even conceive, like the fashion related. When you really commit to something, like you do commit to it. And obviously that didn't work out for you, but just the mere fact at that age and that commitment into that industry and what you guys have achieved, even with that, even though it didn't really get the legs that you wanted, there was still a relative amount of success there. Give us a little bit of an overview over your, previous business journeys, the trials and tribulations there. And, we might even pepper it in with a little bit of the antics that, we've got up to over the past.
Geez, that'll be fun. Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to backtrack, and for anyone that's sort of listening, that's in a similar situation that was, might be young, trying a lot of things and it's just not sticking, just give them some kind of hope, I guess, is always a good thing. But, coming in high school, I was always top of class, really good at mathematics, excelled in mathematics. I'm a numbers person, and I'll lead into where this got me into some trouble. And yeah, I guess, finishing school at 17, so I was always I finished school a year earlier than everyone else. I sort of, we started our partying days, hit that 18 years, started partying. I think Dave might have met you when I was about 19, living out of home.
Fuck, that long.
And, it's been quite some time there.
Man, I'm pushing on 40, next year I'm 40, next year. I'm 38 now. I'm 38 now. End of this year.
I feel good now. Yeah, shit, man. Time's gone, but you probably admit your 30s are your best years.
Shit, yeah.
I think it's So I'll backtrack. We when we went, we were partying a lot. Going out, Dave. All the time. Doing stupid things as you do as a young kid, and I've got no regrets. I went into university. Studied project management, property development, which, to date, that was a $100,000 degree in a prestige university at Bond University, Australia. Have not used it, So, did that degree, didn't use it, got caught up with the wrong people. Started, again, I think, for full transparency, I think this is part of the story. People will enjoy it. Dave, you would remember, we're doing some stupid things, drugs when we were younger, partying, these kind of things, and I got caught up with the wrong people, ended up spending some time behind bars. For me, that was probably the biggest turning point in my life when I went from being a good kid to having good people around me to having bad people around me and partying a lot. And you're not one of those bad people. Spending a couple of months behind bars, I was able to realise, what am I doing? I've got a skill set. I know I'm talented. I always believed in myself, and that was a catalyst that just triggered something. And I got out, cut all those people away that were doing bad things to me, and I just went business mode after that, which was a good and a bad thing, because anything I had an idea of, I just, let's do it, execute. Didn't even think, just went, shit, selling cremation urns.
I remember that. Coffee, cremation urns, clothing.
Coffee. Yeah, just, touched in everything, and the big one, you mentioned it before, we jumped into fashion, and not just fashion, high-end fashion, and moved to Melbourne at the time. And this is a great example of passion and doing something for the right reasons. So we jumped into that business for the wrong reasons. I had no desire to be a fashion designer. I had no desire to ever be known as owning a fashion brand. But what I had a desire of at the time was women. I wanted to be around women. Yeah. And that was in my head, I thought, fashion, you're around women every day. It was the opposite thing. I was around more men than I've ever been around, So
it was ironic, but we went all in again. That was just us. We went all in. So backtrack a year or two before that, I was in the mining industry, and my business partner and I at the time saved a lot of money. So we started that business Death Suite with hundreds of $1,000s in the bank. We went all in to the point that we borrowed an additional $300,000-$400,000 from family, mainly my mother. By the end of it, 2-3 years post starting, we just, I've never had suicidal thoughts, but this is one of the only times, I guess, in business that I was, on the edge. We were just grinding, everything going wrong, money coming in, desperate for more money chucking in, and just didn't have that sort of
business know-how or that advisor, someone to turn to say, stop. And by the end of it, we ended up losing about 700,000 Australian dollars. At the time of now, you're talking $500,000 American. But for me, there was no regrets in that. That was a big learning curve. And I'll go back to anyone listening, like, if there's no passion and you're not doing it for the right reasons, just don't do it. It's simple as that. Like I said, I had no drive for that. It was never going to work on day one. And another one is having the right partners around you. And Joe and Graham, my partners at the time, great people, love them, still talk to them all the time, but we were just all in it for the wrong reason, not the right partners for that project. Whereas Troy, my business partner right now, we're just complete opposite. I'm the operations, I'm the one that drives things. Troy's just the face of the brand. I don't think we've ever had an argument in our 3 years of businesses, and I actually don't think we have had a disagreement. We've had a disagreement, but it's always sorted out on the spot, and I think that's super important for anyone. If you're going to get a partner, get the right partner. Unfortunately, sometimes it's too late before you find out, but I think using gut instincts and judgment on that one's super important before you start.
And so, that's a phenomenal story. The fact, and how old were you when that all went down in terms of Death Suite and borrowing, copious amounts of money, having to pay that back, being stuck at that spot? What age were you when that occurred?
I think it was 23 when we started Death Suite, and 25, 26 when we called it quits.
So, mid-20s, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to family and friends, that's immense pressure to anyone on any standard. So, and, through that period, I remember, speaking to you quite extensively, sometimes, and it still amazed me how you just kept your head up and just kept grinding and kept working your way through it. And, you paid back your debts, you fended off the vultures, and, you came out stronger on the other end. And that's a testament to, your ability, your stamina. I'm still amazed. This is between me and you. Anyone that's listening. When I used to have a hard time, I actually used to call you up and have a chat because your hard times made me feel better. And I don't mean that in an offensive way, but that's good. But the thing is, you conquered them, you crushed them all, and now look where you are. So it's an amazement. So well done. Pat in the back for you, buddy. Pat in the back.
No, I appreciate it. It's good to hear that from yourself. And I think I think everyone has to go through something like that. I'm hoping people don't have to go through a $700,000 loss, but I think, everyone should. And again, this is cliche. It's as cliche as it comes. You should fail. And I think we've had many failures since then, and we continue will. But now that taught me a lot about business, bringing on the right people. If we had just day one, we had the money. If we had actually brought on maybe a business advisor, someone that actually knew what they were doing in the industry, we would have come out on top. Because the brand itself, we've always been strong as a brand, like the branding side. But then I didn't have the business acumen, so that was what let us go. We were selling in 3 countries in our first year. We were doing great from a outsider looking in, but when you looked at our financials, it's like, oh shit, these guys are screwed. So and that taught me a lot. Now in business, I literally look at our financials on a week-to-week basis. I do our cash flow forecasting. I'm very heavily involved with our accounts and our P&Ls. I don't let debt get out of control. And that's been a big thing with Alpha Line when we had that. With Death Suite at the time was just like, I'll pay them later. So, again, you learn these things. So I think anyone watching, you're going to fail, in some aspect. I think it's just going to make you stronger, like you said, Dave.
Most definitely. And, you touched on a really important thing that during that period, you didn't have a business mentor. You didn't have someone to show you the ropes. You didn't have someone to, guide you through the do's and don'ts of business. Now you're at a point of, success. Who in the business world do you look up to, or do you consider a mentor, whether it be directly or indirectly? Is anyone that you particularly follow that helps you pave the way for the future success? And I'll give you a perfect example. I don't have a direct mentor, and I wish I did, and I wish I do, and I'm still looking. There's people out there that I do consider, the upper echelon that I'd love to connect with, but I look at books and podcasts as my mentorship. And there was one book that was a turning point for me, which was Ready, Fire, Aim. And the way that that's laid out is basically different stages of business from 0 to $1 million, or they talk in terms of staff numbers, and then I think it was $1 million to $10 million revenue, and then 10 to 50, 50 to 150 plus. Then you get into the big numbers, and it talks about all the different stages. I think it's Michael Matheson breaks it down. It's a very, very good book, and for me that was like a mentor for me to go through business in the last few years. For yourself, is there anyone that you consider a mentor, people that you study or look up to, or check in on a regular basis?
Yeah, definitely. I'll backtrack. So when we had Death Sweat, I did have a mentor, and you know him, Dave, Tristan Sten.
Of course.
Problem was back then I didn't listen to him. I was very naive, young. Tristan has been for me my mentor since day one, and now I'm not a big book reader. I don't listen to podcasts too much. For me, if I've ever got a problem or I need some advice, it's always a quick phone call to him, and he's always been, no matter what, will come back to me with a response. So that's definitely a mentor that I've got. And other than that, here living in Colombia, I've met some good people. One, the Athletic Greens owner, Chris. I bounce some things off him every now and then. So yeah, definitely, I think having a mentor is important. If you can get access to one. I definitely recommend it. Outside of that, Dave, like you said, books, they do. You read biographies. I just recently read Shoe Dog by Nike founder Phil Knight, and for me that was very inspirational. Yeah, great book, and I just finished reading. Just reading the Starbucks one. Again, I like those types of books. If I do read them, for me, I just love seeing those businesses that are where you want to be now. And, just reading what they've grinded through, I think you can learn a lot from those if you don't have access to a mentor. But I definitely recommend if you can get access to a mentor, that mentor needs to be somewhere that's where you are, where you want to be right now. 100%. So, yeah, on mine, it's definitely, I'd say Tristan is sort of my go-to.
Good old Tristan. And for anyone that's listening, Tristan is literally down the road from where I am right now. So he's my mentor now. In terms of books, one that I'm reading right now, I'm just going to lean over and pull it out. This is a phenomenal book, and I'll just give it a shout out. If you ever get an opportunity, you should check it out. It's called Never Split the Difference. Negotiating as Your Life Depends on It. Really, really good book.
Okay.
It's actually written by an ex-head of FBI negotiations, but he takes it over into the business world, and it's a great book. Good read, easy read. But practical as well, things that you can put into place, into action in the day-to-day life.
Yes.
So
that's one I got. The Road Less Stupid. I'm reading that at the moment. You seen that one?
I do. I think you put me onto Keith Cunningham, and now I watch him daily. I listen to his stuff. Very, very smart man when it comes to finances, economics, business. Great. I'd almost consider him an indirect mentor for me at this point in time, because I put a lot of time and effort into his content.
Yeah, these guys have been there and done it. His sort of strategies all around thinking time, and for me, I've started implementing that thinking time, even if it's 10 minutes a day, and it's amazing what that kind of stuff will do. So I guess it's meditation, for a form of meditation, but it's been a good book of mine.
Very good. And you talked about thinking time, and that's obviously what he mentioned. He talks about in The Road Less Stupid, and I believe he gives you up to 700 questions to be asking yourself to sort of go into that thinking time. But that sort of leads me on to another question that I'm really curious. What is your success routine, or what does your routine look like? A lot of people wake up daily, you have a coffee, check their phone, jump on the computer, and just get caught stuck into the grind. And quite easily, you're sort of operating on reaction and being reactive rather than proactive. Do you have a specific routine that you would contribute to success and keeping you level-headed and not burning out and being able to continue to achieve what you're achieving?
Yeah, for me right now, biggest thing I'm trying to prioritize and trying to optimize is my sleep. I love biohacking, and that's something you mentioned earlier, what's something you want to do on the side. And biohacking for me is something that I'm going to start getting more into. For people that don't know, that's, optimizing your body, your mind, to perform at its best. So for me, sleep, I think, is number one factor in how how our day is going to pan out. The days that I don't sleep well, it's just, your mind's fogged, and it's, we've got products in our catalog that focus on sleep, working on nootropics at the moment. But I just think that you don't need these things if you just, are optimizing, the night before. So that's how my routine starts. Is it doing well right now? No. We've been thrown into a bit of a different time right now with coronavirus. But in terms of waking up, I'm a morning person. 5 a.m. is sort of where I like waking up. I go out and make a coffee, and at the moment I'm reading a chapter in the Road Less Stupid and trying to work on one question a day. Where that's a question in my business that I'm struggling with, and I'll sit there and just, sometimes I can sit there and have nothing that will come out, but I'm thinking, so trying to learn how to use my mind and relax, because I've always been a person that, for example, when we were younger, I can't go sit in a pub. I don't know what you call them in America, but in Australia we call it a pub. I can't go sit in a pub and relax. I've got to be doing something all the time. So for me to sit down and relax and think's always been a challenge. So that's been the routine that I'm trying. But with two dogs at the moment and them stuck indoors, is like they want to be part of that routine, which makes it a little bit hard. It's almost like having two babies. But so I guess going back to anyone listening that's sort of starting out, yeah, it's great to have a routine, but I don't think it's the be all end all sort of thing. I think a lot of people preach that it's important. Don't get me wrong, but I just want to be clear that we've gotten to where we are today with being very, very being remote has had its challenges with us as a business. We've been able to make it work. So I'm definitely in no routine from a day in, day out, from a business and a personal aspect. And I feel we're still, kicking goals.
So this, big ups to you, buddy. A lot of people need that structure, that regiment, that regime to keep them on track. So if you can operate like that and still do well, that's great.
It's not healthy, I'll add.
Now, obviously, this show, Staying on Point, business, marketing, entrepreneurship, fitness. We're in the fitness industry. You and I, we've trained for as long as we've known each other, and many years before that. You mentioned before that you love going to the gym. That's what keeps you sane. Right now, you're not able to go to the gym as much, or if at all. You're doing home stuff. What are you doing for fitness? What are you doing to keep your body in check, your mind in check? What's your training regime at this point of time?
Yeah, so I moved a big shift towards, like I mentioned earlier, optimizing sleep and diet. I've always been very focused on my diet, but since the last 12 months, I've been really aggressive in business. I've let it slip a little bit. I guess I've learned to enjoy a little bit more. Dave, you would have known me back in the day. It was like 6% body fat, 7% body fat, and it was like that all year round. And
cash check or abs?
Actually, that's for another time, I think. So. So now it's sort of moved the focus to that. My business partner, Troy, who's the face of the brand, has a very active YouTube channel. I think we're up around 400,000 subs, and, he's put out a lot of at-home content that I've been able to follow along with. But I think for me, it's been more about, I look at training as a third part of the pyramid. To be honest, I look at sleep almost as number one before diet, very equal. Other people will argue, but for me, sleep and diet is super important. Training down the bottom. If I've got those first two optimized, I don't really need to be doing more than 20, 30 minutes a day of training, is the way I've seen it. And it's no different in business. Optimize the things that are going to achieve 80% of the success rather than focusing on that 20% that I think so many people do. I guess from being at home, that's been the focus. Cooking more, using that as a bit of meditation.
Nice.
Almost
nice.
treating it as a new hobby, which I've always enjoyed.
I know you have.
It's now so now it's the same as hey, I can't sit there and meditate because my mind is just, it's not something I like doing.
For me, cooking is meditating. Luckily I've got a pool where I live in my complex. Going for a swim, I've got a sauna, these kind of things. So yeah, I think my health has gone up, if anything, during this crisis.
Very good, very good, very good. Definitely switched it up a bit since than the old Jordan Farris days back in Australia. That's for sure.
Yeah, things change focus.
Mate, being conscious of time and knowing that end is a near, I want to ask you a last couple of questions pertaining to bigger picture stuff. Okay, life is about to end. There's 2 to 3 things that you want to do on your bucket list. What are they? What have you got tucked away that you must achieve, you must do before the end of days?
Okay, perfect. I've been watching The Last Dance. Michael Jordan. He's been my hero since a little kid. I would love to sit down with him. On my bucket list, I think that would be, I'd love a dinner, sit down with him, a day with him would be up there. Number 2, going back to like mentors, I look at Elon Musk. I know he's strange, and I like that strangeness. I think what he's doing and the way he thinks, and he's always thought, is very inspirational. I would love, the whole space since I was a kid. Astronomy was something that, astronomer is what I wanted to be. I went from being an astronomer to a pharmacist, to where I am now. And going into space, I think, would be on my bucket list. And I dare say, in my lifetime, that's going to be achievable. So for me, those 2 would be up there. Travel. I love travel. I want to travel every part of the world, but I see that as I'm going to achieve that in the next couple of years. So I don't really see that. It's on the bucket list. It's like...
That's a given. That's a given.
Yeah, it's a given, Yeah, sit down with MJ, I think would be up there, and traveling to space would be my second one, I think.
Phenomenal. On that note about Elon Musk, I believe right now, as in this very instant, I believe if he jumped over to the Joe Rogan podcast, he's getting interviewed for a round 2 on Joe Rogan. So that's always an interesting chat between those 2.
Smoking some weed and getting his share value dropped.
Yeah. Well, if he's not tweeting about something that's losing him I think it was about $14 billion he lost in share prices from his latest tweets. If he smokes a bit of weed on there, it's definitely going to hit those Tesla share prices.
Hey, he's a smart guy. It's
everything's
the
strategic.
Share price always end up,
Yeah,
it's all strategic.
Of course. Yeah. Hey, buddy, listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for giving us your time, insight into Alpha Lion, yourself, your business, where you're going, where you've been. You've got a phenomenal story. I can't wait to see, what you achieve in the coming months and years, because I know the trajectory that you're on is like this, and you're unstoppable. So I really appreciate you jumping on for the first episode of Staying on Point. If anyone wanted to reach out to you for whatever reason, where can they find you? Give us some of your details, as much as you're willing to give. Where can they go to check out the Alpha Lion products? Fill us in.
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, appreciate it, brother. I feel privileged to be on the first podcast. I look forward to it actually getting out and people listening to it. Hopefully, someone listening gets something out of it. End of the day, if you can help one person, that's there's a win straight away. So. Appreciate giving me the platform for this. I guess in terms of where you can find me, number 1, Alpha Lion, www.alphalion.com. In terms of access to me, I guess probably Instagram. Send me a DM on IG. These days, I'm on there a little bit more. Just search for me. You'll find me. Look at Alpha Lion. You'll find me somewhere on the Alpha Lion comments. But any questions, I'm more than happy to help.
Fantastic. Again, much appreciated. Thank you very much, and catch you on the flip side. See you.
Chat soon, brother.
Thank you for listening to Staying on Point. Tune in with us on our next episode as we dive in, interviewing other fantastic guests, finding out exactly what makes them tick and how they've achieved their success.